Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom, and we are going to be having a look through my entire Blu Ray collection. I'll put a little asterisk by that because there are a couple of omissions here. Firstly, no Marvel stuff. I'm doing all my Marvel stuff in separate videos with the actual title, so please look on the channel for them. And there are a couple of large box sets that will be omitted as well, simply because I don't want to have to go and get them. And this will just be Blu-rays and not DVD. So I'm not going to spend too much time. I'm just going to kind of whip through. I'm going to try and do it in genres, but other than that, there's no real order to this, so you never know what's going to be coming. First thing we're going to be having a look at is this Excalibur media book. This is one that is from France. Excalibur is one of my favourite fantasy films. Next up, we'll be having a look at Dungeons and Dragons 3. This is actually, in my opinion, the best Dungeons and Dragons movie, and it actually focuses on the bad guy. Think of it a bit like a fantasy medieval Suicide Squad, basically. Next up, we'll have a look at is Centurion. So this is a historical fantasy, really, based on the Lost Legion that disappeared up in Scotland of Romans. Then we've got 10,000 BC Steelbook. I watched this ages ago, I don't really remember. I just picked this Steelbook up for mega cheap, so yeah, there you go. And then we have a Gladiator Steelbook. I love the Gladiator movie. It's so good, so I kind of really want to get it on the Steelbook. Most of my films that I really enjoy, I do want to pick up on Steelbook or at least on kind of Amaray Blu-ray. So Gladiator is one such movie. We've got 300 Rise of an Empire. I currently don't have the original 300. It's one of the movies I do want to get. I wouldn't mind a Steelbook from that, but I do have the sequel that I picked up for pretty cheap. I have this Korean version of Red Sonja. A kind of somewhat forgotten about Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. And this one is a limited run to just 500 copies. And mine is 179 from 500, so that's, you know, a fairly kind of limited run for this particular one. Then we have the Warcraft movie. This particular release in the UK was exclusive to a company called Zoom. There you go. Then we have Snow White and the Huntsman, and this is a kind of a window box style launch from the company HMV. Here in the UK, like a limited edition version. Then we have Aaran the Knight Templar, a really good, well-produced medieval film. It seems like it's a historical film. It isn't. It's actually a made-up story, but it feels like it should be very epic, like a Braveheart and Gladiator-style film. So if you like those movies, do check out this one. It's a foreign movie, but there are sequences that are spoken in English. The Dragon Phoenix Chronicles. This was a blind buy for me, which I do sometimes, and yeah, it was kind of a low budget kind of sword and sorcery movie. There's a review on the channel somewhere for it. Rise of the Shadow Warrior. This is a pretty decent fantasy movie by the company Arrow Storm Entertainment, and this is a whole bunch of names: the Shadow Cabal, Saga. There's a whole bunch of different names this has been released under. This is the UK launch, and it's a pretty decent fantasy movie, low budget, but in the style of kind of Lord of the Rings. You have the kind of like the Urukai style orcs and stuff. We have The Fall of Grayskull, which is actually a He-Man and the Masters of the Universe fan film. I do actually have mine signed by director Daniel Bernhardt, I think his name is. Daniel Benedict. And yeah, it's actually a pretty fun adaptation of He-Man. I have this Highlander Mondo-style steelbook, and I actually thought I had lost this. I only found this when I sorted all these Blu-rays out for this kind of video. I thought I'd lost it. Yeah, but obviously the first Highlander film really is the one and only really movie that I think exists in this series. We have the Beastmaster movie, and this is the Australian release, which is a couple of seconds longer than the UK release. I believe it has a bit of extra footage of Tanya Roberts in the nudie. So there you go. Hawk the Slayer. Bill Bailey punched someone in the face for this for saying it was rubbish. If you've seen Space, you'll know that reference. This is a really cheesy but really fun fancy film with possibly one of the greatest elf characters known as Crow, who kind of shoots his bow and arrow at the speed of a machine gun. Really fun but super cheesy. Iron Master. By the look of this cover, you may think it's a fantasy film. It's kind of more a caveman film. It's not so much, you know, medieval fantasy. It's more of a caveman film. This is an 88 films release with the limited edition slip. We have the Hobbit Extended Edition Unexpected Journey Steelbook, or Jumbo Steelbook. We have the Extended Edition, again, Hobbit, the Desolation of Smaug, Jumbo Steelbook. And I should expect the Hobbit Battle of the Five Armies Jumbo Steelbook. I got all these second hand from CEX, that's why they're all unsealed, really. Awkward. This is a really fun movie that I would recommend. This is a French version of the Blu Ray. You can't actually get it in the UK on Blu Ray. You can get it on DVD. And yeah, it's kind of like, what if the realm of Tolkien invaded our Earth, essentially, and you have all these orcs and dragons and stuff pouring into our world, and it's like this kind of like rural farmer type to try and fight them off. Thor, Hammer of the Gods. This is a kind of fancy movie. This is actually a metal pack. And you have a young Thor facing off against a load of werewolves. Yeah, so it's kind of a different style fancy movie. And then the last one I'd probably consider fancy is Willow. Obviously the infamous George Lucas produced movie starring Val Kilmer. So that is the fancy films. So moving into sci-fi, first one we'll talk about is Turbo Kid, a fantastic movie from 2015. And a little genre in its own right, because I actually have quite a few releases for this one. This is just the standard UK Blu-ray. We have the Canadian exclusive Steelbook. We have this German limited release. I think it's sort of Scariovo release or something like that, and that is limited to 250. Got a slipcase and all that. There's also a second version of that, which is once again limited to 250. They're kind of premium release ones. I also have a German media book. This is again limited edition, and I think this is limited to a certain amount, though I can't remember how much. Something like, there you go, 500, just on the bottom right hand corner there. So limited to 500, this one. And then I have a little mini Spanish box set. I do have a larger box set as well, but like I said, I'm just not gonna, it's just too big to go and look around. But this one's got like a VHS and stuff in there. So that's Turbo Kid. Moving on to a movie that everyone should have in their collection, of course, and that is Star Wars: A New Hope. This is the Steelbook. I'm a bit selective for Star Wars films because it's quite simple. I don't like all of them. Obviously, the first one is a classic, as is The Empire Strikes Back. That's the Steelbook for that. And then A Return of the Jedi. Again, the Steelbook. And then I have the Force Awakens, which I'm kind of less of a fan of over time. Now, I liked it when I first watched it, but since then it's kind of gone down in my estimation. But that didn't stop me from getting a premium release Steelbook. which is from Nova Media. Yeah, Nova Media. This has got this lenticular cover on it. And it's limited to 800. And then we got the Rogue One steelbook, the UK steelbook. I didn't pre-order The Last Jedi, didn't like that film at all, so I'm not going to bother with that one. Star Trek, the only Star Trek movie that I own is this one, and it's the only one I actually haven't seen. So I bought the steelbook without actually seeing the movie, purely because I thought this steelbook was so striking. One day I'll actually watch it, but at the moment, not yet. So this is actually a French release for the retailer Fnac. Ice Pirates, a fantastic, cheesy fun movie. This is an American Blu Ray. A great space opera, kind of sci-fi comedy. Space Hunter as well, same kind of similar sort of premise again, a bit more maybe of an adult sort of science fiction action movie. Space Hunter Adventures in the Forbidden Zone. Yeah, I've kind of forgotten about sci-fi movie to a certain degree, I think. The Last Starfighter, one of my favourite sci-fi movies that I do really think can actually do with a remake, to be honest. I think this will adapt well to today's kind of technology and, you know, update on the story. Yeah, this is an American one. Then we have Star Crash. This is a German Blu Ray, and I've actually got this signed by Star Caroline Munro when I met her at a convention. So that's her there. She signed it. Caroline Munro, stellar star that's her character name in this movie. Battle Beyond the Stars. This is a Spanish version. It's the only Region B version that I can get. So I don't really like getting them. They have a foreign title, but American kind of Blu-ray sometimes don't work. So if I can get a Region B, I'll get that over the American one. Origin Wars, which is a recent science fiction movie. God, it's called something else outside of the UK. The name escapes me now. I have reviewed this one. It's actually pretty good. Oh God, I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, Osiris Child, that's it. Osiris Child, Science Fiction Volume 1. There is a French steelbook, which I'm kind of toying with the idea about getting, but as of yet, I've just got this UK Blu-ray. This one is a double pack, as you can see. I only really worked this for Galaxina. I've never seen this movie, nor do I intend to. Galaxina is actually one of my favourite kind of like retro films, and I don't really like getting double packs, but you simply can't get this on any other format, so this is the only option that I've got. You know, it is obviously a very old movie, but I kind of quite like it for its cheesy fun. And I've also got Battlestar Galactica. This was the original pilot, which did air in cinemas in Europe. So I'm classing it as a movie rather than a TV show. I've got the Hunger Games original steelbook. Hunger Games Catching Fire steelbook. For some reason I bought it again, Hunger Games Catching Fire, this HMV exclusive digipack with art cards. Then I also got the Hunger Games Amazon exclusive 4-film collection with a lenticular magnet there. I think it's quite a nice looking steelbook, but I'm not the hugest fan of the Hunger Games, if I'm honest. We have Jean-Claude Van Damme Cyborg. This is a metal pack, I think maybe from Germany, maybe, I'm not quite sure actually. It's definitely a European one, and yeah, quite a fun little release for kind of, again, a movie that originally started out as Masters of the Universe 2, you might not know. And we have a German release of the movie, actually this might be, yeah, I think it's German. Release of the movie Bounty Killer, which is a kind of a Mad Max style post-apocalyptic movie. It's pretty good at Mad Max. Obviously, this is the German release of the steelbook of Mad Max Fury Road. Then I have Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and this is the metal pack, which was a oh god, what is it, Entertainment Earth exclusive or something like that. It was there's only 500 of these in the UK versions. And then the steelbook of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. And then we have this Fifth Element steelbook, which is one of these kind of pop art things. I think this is an American one, I believe. Next up, we have this movie called Virtual Revolution. I was actually sent a screener for this one before it came out. I really enjoyed it. It's like a sort of cyberpunk, kind of a Blade Runner-esque style movie, a bit lower budget. It's called Virtual Reality 2047, I think it is in the UK. And we actually have some quotes on the UK DVD case of that. But I really like it, so I wanted to get it on Blu Ray, so I had to get this German version. But I would recommend it if you like kind of cyberpunk movies. I have this Dread sort of little sort of digibook, media book from Germany. This kind of Solar Fighters in the UK, this was known as Solar Babies, and actually teams up Jason Patrick and Jamie Gertz, who of course were from Lost Boys, and it was a kind of a fun, if not slightly weird, science fiction movie. And I have this movie from Twilight Time, which is an American company, Mind Warp, which is a kind of a post-apocalyptic / Matrix style movie that stars the, of course, fantastic Bruce Campbell in one of his non-Evil Dead roles. So that's quite a fun little movie. I've got the Alien Anthology Jumbo Steelbook, which has got the the 4 Alien sort of singular movies. But I also have the singular Aliens steelbook. This was a Zavvi, I believe, Zavvi release in the UK. And then the annoyingly landscaped pictured pitch black steelbook. The Avatar movie, which I kind of liked. I'm not going to line up, this gets a lot of hate, but I kind of like this movie. That's the UK steelbook. And the John Carter movie, which I also kind of liked. Just the UK Blu Ray. You've got the Guyver, which is based on a manga. And this is the German media book, the German metal pack, and it's really heavily embossed. It's quite a cool little image on that one. Got this French steelbook for the movie Kill Command, as it's known in most places. In France, it's known as Identify, which is the thing that these robots keep saying. But this is actually the steelbook of Kill Command, which I really enjoyed, so I wanted to get the steelbook of it, but the steelbook's only in France, so I obviously got this version of it. Once again, I got a Battlestar Galactica, the pilot, kind of like feature-length episode. This is a premium steelbook, limited to 200 pieces, from the company called Steel Archive, which is a kind of a German premium steelbook place. Then we have the more recent Battlestar Galactica TV movie called Battlestar Galactica: The Plan. Not actually watched this though. I do love some Transformers. So this is the just your standard UK Transformers the movie Blu Ray. Then we also got the steelbook. I was really happy when they released this on steelbook format because this literally is one of my favourite films. Then I have the original, you know, live action movie on the German steelbook. And I think this is the second movie. Yeah, the second Transformers movie. Again, the German steelbook. Then we have the Transformers Age of Extinction UK steelbook, or one of them, because there was actually two. And that's the other one. So that's the other. This one is the 3D steelbook. Again, the UK Age of Extinction steelbook. Then we have this Nemesis box set. Nemesis was a movie that originally starred Oliver Gruner, and it's a kind of a cyborg robotic series. Interestingly enough, this box set is released in Germany, and they actually used my review as a special feature on this actual box set. So if you watch the Nemesis 1, a special feature on this very Blu-ray is a review that is on my channel that they took off my channel and didn't ask permission. There you go. And we have Eliminators, again one of my favourite movies from the 80s. A kind of almost a superhero team to a degree, but it's really a class as a science fiction. This is from 88 Films, and this one has the limited slipcase. Then we have this Asian metal pack from, I actually got this from a contest I won on YouTube. So obviously I was pretty happy to win that. This is a recent one actually. And then we have the Demolitionist. Again, this is a favourite movie of mine that's kind of forgotten about and is almost like a female take on RoboCop. I really enjoyed this movie back in the days of VHS. It is kind of cheesy. You got Richard Grieco as the bad guy, who is the definition of hamming it up. Universal Soldier: Day of Reckoning. I just picked this up because I like the cast: Van Damme, Scott Adkins, and Dolph Lundgren. The movie isn't very good, though, if I'm honest. Automator, which was a really fun kind of AI robotic movie that I actually thought was actually quite intelligent and quite a well-made movie with some decent special effects and animatronics and stuff like that. Worth a watch if you kind of like those sort of style movies. They kind of flew under the radar quite a bit. So that's a UK Blu-ray. And then finally, for my science fiction Blu-rays, we have American Cyborg Steel Warrior, which was again a kind of a 90s kind of spin-off of the Terminator craze that was kind of going on in that time when you had Cyber this, Cyborg that, and this was one of the ones I really enjoyed. So that's obviously the science fiction ones. So let's have a look what we got next. So I'll have a quick look at some video game movies, just fairly small little collection. This one is the first Resident Evil, and this is an Italian steelbook. You can't actually get the original Resident Evil on steelbook on the UK. You can only get imported ones. The rest of them you can for some reason, but not the first one. So that is the Italian version. The only other Resident Evil movie I've got is the Resident Evil Afterlife. I only picked that up because it was like super cheap, and that is the steelbook for that one. Then we have the steelbook for Tekken. There's two Tekken movies. This is the first one. And this is the Blu Ray steelbook. I actually have the steelbook on DVD as well, exactly the same cover. And there's various kind of postcards and stuff and that kind of thing in there as well. Then you have Mortal Kombat, a movie that I genuinely love. Really enjoy this movie. Watched it loads of times. Some of the best martial art movies made by American cinema, if you ask me. Then we have the Silent Hill metal pack, UK metal pack, and I hadn't actually seen the second one of this, to be honest. I understand it's not as good, but as of yet I have not seen it. Prince of Persia, steelbook, and I hadn't seen this movie. It's one of those ones that I bought because it was just super cheap where I worked, and yeah, never actually seen the film. And then Final Fantasy Advent Children. So this is technically a continuation from a video game rather than an actual based on a video game. And this is a metal pack. Not sure where it's from, if I'm honest. So yeah, that is the metal pack for Final Fantasy Advent Children. So we'll move on to TV series. First one we'll have a look at is the Walking Dead Season 1 steelbook. These are all UK steelbooks I'm going to be showing you for Walking Dead. I really enjoyed the show, and I still do. And I know it's lost a lot of viewers, but I still enjoy it. Maybe not as much. Then we have the number 2. That's the steelbook. And then we have Series 3. And the Entertainment Store. The first 3 were released by the Entertainment Store. And then they kind of stopped doing stuff. This one is a jumbo steelbook for some reason. And then Zavvi kind of continued on with the kind of the style of the artwork. So that is the 4th season. And then the 5th season. So I only go up to 5. I haven't got the other ones. If I see them cheaper, I'll probably pick them up, but I'm not so fussed about them. Next steelbooks we'll be having a look at are the Game of Thrones. So this is the Season 1. So these are pretty collectible now, and some of these seasons go for a lot of money. This is the 1st season. Fantastic series. I'm sure most of you watched this. Got the 2nd season. These come with this kind of like sigil magnets. So they're quite fun. They obviously hook on to the steelbook. Number 3, Season 3, steelbook. Season 4. Season 4, 5 and 6 I actually had to get second hand, so they are unsealed. 5th, this one here, I had to pay a pretty penny for. Because they just shot up in value, and I was kind of dragging my heels about collecting them. That is the 6th season. And this is as I filmed this video, the most recent season. Season 7. Obviously there will be hopefully an 8th steelbook to complete the collection. This one I got new though, so it was sealed. That's the first 3. Staying with steelbooks, next one we'll be having a look at is the Spartacus, and this is the Blood and Sand, which was the 1st series. Now there was I actually thought I had the prequel series to this, which was I forgot what it's called now, Legend of the Ring or something like that. But no, I couldn't find it, so I must not have bought it. So this is the 1st series that starred Andy Whitfield, who sadly died after making this 1st season, so they had to recast him. Next up we have Robin of Sherwood, which is one of my favourite TV shows. This is a British Robin Hood series that was in the 80s and is one of my favourite shows ever. I still watch this from time to time, and this is the UK Blu Ray limited edition releases for them. And that is Season 3, where they recast Robin Hood with Jason Connery, son of Sean Connery. The first 2 seasons were in the last box set, but they were shorter episodes. This 3rd season was twice the length, so they've just separated into 2 packs. Next up we have this large box set, Blu Ray box set, from the series Camelot, that only lasted 1 season. That I think if it was released more recently may have been may have been more popular, because when this was released, Game of Thrones mania hadn't really kind of kicked in, and probably people have lapped this up a little bit more than they did when it was first out. Then we have 24. I can only get a couple of these seasons on Blu-ray. They're not all available, which is annoying. I love this show. I've watched this many a time, and I feel this show is very addictive. And then we have the final season, apparently, which wasn't the final season, but there you go. And that's the only ones I've got on Blu-ray. I randomly have Walking Dead, just regular Amaray for some reason. Don't know why. Probably got that before the Steelbook. Then we have the Being Human, the British version, Season 1. I wouldn't mind getting the American versions, actually, because I actually do prefer them, believe it or not. So that's the Season 1, and then we have Season 2. These, even though I do prefer the American version, I still do really enjoy the UK versions. I think they're slightly more comedic in tone. So that is the TV. I only have a few kind of kiddie films, so we'll have a quick whip through these. First one is Ratatouille, which I have on Blu-ray. Next one is The Little Mermaid, which is a steelbook, which I actually bought as a steelbook bundle with a bunch of other steelbooks. Have literally no interest in watching this. There you go. But I got this in the same bundle, and this is one I did want to watch, because Bedknobs and Broomsticks was one of my favourite movies when I was young. I really enjoyed the last scene where all the kind of the museum kind of attractions all kind of come to life and stuff. It was brilliant. And then I have the Nightmare Before Christmas steelbook, which I actually got with Disney points. Moving on to some comedies. Weird Science, my favourite comedy of all time, even though I would say it's actually not all that funny, but it's a great comedy adventure, if that makes sense. There are funny moments in it, but it's not like my favourite pure comedy, maybe. But I love it as a kind of weird hybrid movie that it is. Let's Be Cops was a kind of very recent kind of fun movie I quite enjoyed, so I thought I'd pick it up. 17 again, a movie that I was initially kind of not really wanting to watch, because didn't want to watch the Zac Efron movie. But when I did watch it, I actually really enjoyed it, and it's kind of a body swap movie, which I do enjoy. And yeah, this one was kind of actually quite a fun movie, and has some quite good nerdy moments from his kind of geeky friend in it, which I thought was quite fun. 22 Jump Street, again, a kind of a fun action comedy. I actually used to watch the original series when it was on in the UK. So there you go. The Change Up, again, a kind of fun body swap movie, starring Ryan Reynolds, obviously now Deadpool. Got the Hangover Trilogy Steelbook. These are, I find these movies hilarious. I mean, they get gradually less hilarious, but the first one is comedy gold. Then we have the Ted Steelbook. I do think steelbooks of comedies are a bit weird. They're not the kind of film that really is massively collectible, if you ask me, but there you go. Still enjoyed this movie. In-Betweeners, a movie who, if you're outside the US, you might not know about. This is kind of like, I guess you would call it a sex comedy, a teen sex comedy, very British humour. Yeah, I find it hilarious, but I don't know if people from outside of the UK will find it as funny. And then we have the In-Betweeners 2. I didn't massively like this movie, actually. I thought it was a massive step down compared to the second one. It does have a couple of funny elements, funny moments, but it just seemed to be just rehashing the first one, if you ask me. And then a kind of few mock movies that I don't really know where to put them, to be honest. First one is we've got this Ghostbusters steelbook. And then we have the Ghostbusters 2016 version. And this one comes with a huge magnet, actually. We have the Godzilla 3D steelbook. Super 8 steelbook. Sweeney Todd steelbook. I've never watched this movie. The Edward Scissorhands. This is an Italian box set that comes with a bunch of stuff sealed up, so I've not actually opened it. So that is kind of family and comedy stuff. So now we're going to move on to action movies. The first one we're going to have a look at is this Blu Ray media book from Germany for the movie Hunted, which is a Christopher Lambert straight to kind of DVD, straight to video actioner. But I'm telling you, this is a really good film. It's actually about an American businessman who gets mixed up with a ninja clan in Japan and is protected by this kind of like this samurai couple. And it's really good. It's all set in Japan, and honestly, it's a really good martial arts action film. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. The cover is a little bit nondescript, and yeah, but it's really worth checking out. And I was really happy to get this media book because this is literally the only way you can get it on Blu Ray. So yeah, I'm pretty happy to get that. Next up, we have The Kingsman. This is a steelbook exclusive to HMV. This is actually a second steelbook that came out. The first one I wasn't so keen on the artwork, to be honest with you, but this one I enjoyed. This one came out prior to the second movie coming out, which I wasn't massively fussed with. But yeah, the first movie I really enjoyed. And we have Prisoners of the Lost Universe, starring the late, great Richard Hatch, probably best known for Battlestar Galactica. And this movie is notoriously bad, but yeah, you know, I quite like getting some bad movies here and there. Wait till you see the horror section. Vigilante Diaries. This is one I just random blind buy bought. There's a review up on the channel. It's just a bizarre kind of action movie. It's got quite an interesting cast, a few kind of familiar faces you'll see. You know, Jason Mewes, Michael J. White, Rampage Jackson, Michael Madsen. So there's definitely a few familiar faces there. 68 Kill. This is a movie I thoroughly enjoyed and is a kind of a Tarantino-esque style kind of action comedy. I would say its closest cousin is probably True Romance rather than an actual Tarantino-directed movie. It has that sort of kinetic kind of sort of style to it, and is really a love letter to femme fatales. But it's all the characters are really fun. It goes really dark, and it's quite violent. I'm actually one of these people who enjoy the Liam Neeson kind of resurgence that he's had in recent years of being an action hero. So I picked up this one, which is the non-stop Blu-ray with an lenticular sleeve. I enjoy these movies. A Good Day to Die Hard steelbook, and you'll be ashamed to know this is the only Die Hard movie I have on Blu-ray. I used to work for CEX, and I used to get loads of steelbooks used to come in, and I used to get them for like next to nothing. So a lot of the kind of like the random steelbooks that you see are from that, and this is one of them. As is this one, Red 2, also a Bruce Willis movie. I can't actually remember if I've seen this or not. Hateful Eight. This is the HMV exclusive steelbook in the UK. I actually originally bought this one for a contest. But no one actually picked it because I gave a choice in prizes. Haven't actually watched this movie. Not a big fan of westerns, to be honest. Stallone Cobra. Actually a relatively low budget Stallone movie about a kind of maverick cop fighting a serial killer played by Brian Thompson, who is one of my favourite kind of B-movie character actors. Devil's Double. This is one of those steel books I got from CX and never actually watched the movie of. Natural Born Killers. This one they had randomly in a supermarket on Steelbook, so it was pretty cheap, so I picked it up. Fight Club. This is a future pack, which is basically a metal pack, and this was, I think, a Fox exclusive, like mail away one in the UK anyway. Safe House. Again, this is a CEX kind of pickup Steelbook. Actually not a bad film, actually. I was quite happy with this one. Con Air. This is actually a German Steelbook, and I really enjoy this movie, so I wanted to get it on Steelbook. But the UK one was a tad expensive, so I got this German one, which I preferred because it does have the actual picture of the movie on it. Wanted, based on a Mark Millar comic book, although this movie is very, very kind of loosely adapted from it. Again, this was a CX pickup for dirt cheap. As was this one, haven't seen this film. As was this one, can't remember if I've seen this or not. This is one of those that I got in a Steelbook bundle, along with Bed Knobs and Broomsticks and a couple of other ones. I saw this when it first came out, not overly fussed. Skyfall Steelbook. A friend of mine very kindly bought this for me. G.I. Joe Retaliation. I actually quite enjoyed this film, I've got to say, and this was in the UK a limited edition to 2,000 copies from the Entertainment Store, which was originally Play.com. Taken, a movie that I saw at the cinema I knew nothing about, and made me fall in love with Liam Neeson as an action star. The sequel's less so, but I do enjoy his other kind of action movies more so than the sequels, but this first movie was fantastic. And the series isn't bad. Lawless, this is another one of these Steelbooks I got in that kind of bundle. Haven't watched it. This is a German Steelbook. And again, the Inception Steelbook, another one of these ones I got with that Steelbook bundle off eBay. And I haven't actually watched it. Then I have a Leon, which is one of my favourite action movies. And this is a Steelbook for that. But I also have this one, which is a metal pack. Why did I double dip? Well, I actually treble dipped. Actually, this one was a present. So I have Leon 3 times on a metal format. This one was one of the pop art ones. It's actually bought for me for a present. So that is the action movies. So let's move on to the horror, which I believe is the biggest section. So we're going to move on to horror, which I have somewhat separated into different subgenres, but just going to go through the kind of the bulk of them first. So the first one that we'll have a look at is this Jennifer's Body, which I got when I worked for CEX, and it came in with this weird kind of like mega sort of cover, which has like Megan Fox with giant boobs on it, basically. I don't think you can see that, but it's all kind of like massively embossed, so it has this huge... you can feel Megan Fox's boobs. There you go. Saw the film once ages ago. Don't really remember it, if I'm honest. Next one we got is Scream Park. This is a blind buy, and I still haven't actually watched it. I got this just from Amazon Germany, just having a look around, seeing ones I might like, and saw this, but still not got around to watching it yet. Husk, one of the After Dark originals, and about a killer scarecrow. This is actually pretty good. It's a pretty scary scarecrow film, for lack of a better word. Speaking of scarecrows, 88 Films released The Scarecrows, which is absolutely one of my favourite horror films from the 80s. Really creepy. I mean, I make people watch this more recently and people think, oh, it's rubbish, but I thought this was really creepy. Just as this great shots of the scarecrows with the wind is kind of blowing through them, kind of like hanging. I thought it was great. I actually got another copy of it, which is the copy I bought before. And this is an Australian Blu-ray, which comes with a slipcase. But I liked the other cover, so this is why I double dipped and got the 88 film version as well. A more recent release was the It. This is the UK steelbook, which was exclusive to HMV here in the UK. Quite enjoyed this movie. It's a well-made film. I didn't find it particularly scary, but there you go. We also had the steelbook for the original It, was a 90s mini-series. So I still think has elements that are actually better than the more recent one, but overall, obviously, the modern one's a lot more of a polished effect. Starting with clowns, though, we have the movie Clown, which is quite a brutal clown movie about a guy who slowly is transformed into a clown. I also have the steelbook of that, which is a German release, and this one's actually numbered it's numbered to 1,000. I don't know if you can see there. So it's actually pretty limited. Now, I actually ordered this and they sent me 2, so I sold the other one on eBay. But the other one was unsealed. So I know this one comes with a poster and some postcards as well, because I had a look at the other one. Evil Dead, classic. This is the original, and this is the UK steelbook. Evil Dead 2, which was my favourite film of all time for a long while, which is why I have bought it both on Amaray, which I can actually watch, and then steelbook, so I can keep it sealed and sit on the shelf. I have a few versions of this on DVD as well, actually, but this is just the Blu-rays. Army of Darkness, this is the UK steelbook for this one, which is more of a fantasy film than a horror. And the tone of this one is more in line with the TV show, which I'm not the biggest fan of, if I'm honest. And then we have the remake. This one is the European release of the pop art one. We have Cabin in the Woods, which was a kind of fun deconstruction of the horror genre, but also an entertaining film in its own right. This is the UK steelbook for that. Krampus, this is the German steelbook, Christmas-themed horror film that I really enjoyed. Saw this at the cinema and had a lot of fun with it. Scream, I actually won this in a contest on YouTube. I forget who from. It might have been Blu Ray Ben, but I can't 100% remember. But this was, yeah, obviously a very classic horror film now. Then we have American Poltergeist 3, which is actually called Encounter in the US. Now, I've actually got quite friendly with the director of this movie. I did a review for this on my channel, and then since then I've actually got pretty friendly with the director, who's done a couple of other things as well. Next up, we'll have a look at Savaged. Now, this is a German media book, and this is kind of like the movie The Crow. It's about this deaf and mute woman who gets raped and kind of murdered by a group of thugs, and comes back as a kind of a vengeful spirit, kind of mixed in with a kind of a spirit of a dead Native American. And it's actually a cross between I Spit on Your Grave and The Crow. And that's limited to 1,000 copies. But yeah, it's a decent movie. We have Dolls, which is a really fun, practical effects driven horror movie from yesteryear with some very kind of quite cool and inventive scenes. This one I have no idea about. I've not actually watched it yet, and it's clearly a rip-off of the Underworld series. And I bought this just on a blind buy, and as with most blind buys, I've not actually got round to watching it yet. So, Dark World, who knows? One day maybe. Chillerama, again, a blind buy. This is a anthology movie. One day I'll watch it. Curse of Chucky. I actually got given this by Horror Pack, who wanted me to do an unboxing for them, because they were thinking about moving into the UK. However, the import cost, because you've got to pay import tax, was nearly as much as the box would cost, so they never bothered. I also got this double pack in that, Demonic and Uninvited. And I also got Creepshow 2 in the same horror pack, and I think there was another one as well. Crawl. This was just a movie that I saw on the shelf at CX, and I didn't work there. Picked it up, but haven't actually watched it yet. The Autopsy of Jane Doe. This is a really, really good, effective modern horror film about these two mortuary workers who get this strange body of an unknown woman in, and strange things start to happen. One really scary moment in this film. I won't spoil it for you. Then I have the metal pack for the remake of The Hills Have Eyes, which I really enjoyed, and I actually do think the remake is better than the original, I've got to say. Might be heresy for some. Tortured. This is a movie that was a blind buy that I have actually watched, and is the reviews on the channel somewhere. Same with The Hidden. But what attracted me to this one was the cover. I thought, wow, that's a really cool looking image there. And if the movie is anything like that, it's going to be super scary. My one and only Shameless release that I purchased. This one, which was the Church. And this one is numbered to 3,000 pieces. I'm not actually, unlike a lot of people, I'm not like a person who buys a particular company to release. I really don't care who releases it. I just want the film, basically. I don't care if it's Arrow, 88 Films or whatever. I just want the film. Splinter, which is a really fun kind of like creature feature. Kind of if you've seen a Thing and you've not seen this film, then see this film, because it's kind of similar, I would say. Waxwork. This one by the was released by Lionsgate, but it's for the Vestron Collector's Series. This comes with a slipcase, and I got mine from Amazon, and I was pissed because my slipcase is knackered, so I was not very happy about that. But there you go. But I love the movie. The Crazies. Obviously, this is the remake, and I quite enjoyed this quite a bit. Not really a zombie film, but it might as well be. Vile, blind buy, haven't watched it. The Omen, this was part of that steelbook bundle I bought off eBay a little while ago. I think I only paid like 20 quid for it, and I got all these steelbooks. It was brilliant. And then Final Destination 5, which was when I worked at CX, this came in, so I picked it up for next to Nout. So we're going to have a look at some werewolf films now. First one we'll have a look at is Wolf Cop, which is clearly a B movie. I haven't actually watched this one. I've only ever seen the sequel, but I did buy the steelbook, but haven't actually watched the movie yet. Wasn't overly fussed with the second one, I have to be honest. So it didn't really enthrall me to buy it to watch this first one, but I just liked the steelbook, so I picked it up. A recent werewolf film, or fairly recent, is this movie Howl, and this is about a commuter train that gets stuck in the middle of the forest, basically, and attacked by werewolf creatures. What you're looking at here is the German media book, limited edition, and yeah, I mean, if a film I really enjoy, I'll try and see if I can get a limited edition version of it. And you know, media books are quite expensive. They're actually more expensive than steel books, to be honest. Yeah, this is kind of all you can get for it. So there you go. I did buy the originals, just the Blu-ray as well, so I could actually watch that one and keep the media book sealed though. Bad Moon. This is a Spanish release, hence why it's got a different title here. But this, you can't actually get Bad Moon on Blu-ray in Region B, and like I've said, I don't really like buying American ones unless I absolutely have to, because a lot of the American ones don't actually work on my player. But yeah, Bad Moon is a great horror film. Where? This is a found footage werewolf film which tries to be a little bit more realistic in regards to the werewolf legend. So purists might not be so fussed with it, but I thought this was quite a well-made film, and actually if you like found footage and werewolf films, it's definitely worth checking out. And this is a German release. A more recent release of me at the time of recording this video is this Howling steelbook. Howling, as I've mentioned in my unboxing of this one, is a great werewolf film that kind of gets forgotten about because it came out around the same sort of time as American Werewolf in London, or at least kind of in the, not far off. And that kind of swallows up a lot of the conversation. But the Howling on its own right, I think, is a fantastic movie that spawned many sequels, none of which touched the original. Speaking of American Werewolf in London, obviously you've got the Blu-ray, that one, just the regular Blu-ray. I also picked up this, that's a blind buy, Werewolf Beast Among Us. I think I saw a trailer, the one that looked quite good, so I got it on Blu-ray, and there's a review of this one on the channel somewhere. So moving on to vampires, and of course no vampire collection will be complete without the guy who started it all, Dracula. So this one is actually a steelbook, but it has a slipcase from it that was exclusive to the UK retailer Zoom. So that is the UK steelbook of the Bela Lugosi Dracula. Fright Night. This is at the moment, my #1 favourite movie. I love this movie so much that obviously I had to get it. When it came out in steelbook, I was over the moon because it looks so great. And this one was kind of like sold out pretty quick, so I was really happy to get this. So yeah, that's Fright Night. I actually got the first release of Fright Night was on Twilight Time, which was a American version, but it was so expensive, and I didn't know whether it worked, so I didn't bother getting that. But then this got released in Germany, so I picked the German release up. So this was the first release I got on Blu-ray, and along with the steelbook, we also got a standard UK Blu-ray. Now this one actually comes with the feature-length documentary, You're So Cool, Brewster, I think it's called, which is a really good documentary which you can actually buy separately. But yeah, it's a really good release just for the special features. Fright Night 2, a movie that a lot of people don't like, but I love it nearly as much as the second one. Now, there's not a UK version of this, so I had to get a foreign version, hence why it is the foreign title here. But I would say the second one is still in my top 10 movies of all time, and I like it nearly as much as the second one. I also got the media book for the second movie. That's actually from a different country. And at the time, this was the only version that you could get on Blu-ray, this one, officially anyway, and this is limited to 2,000 copies. I'm sure one day there will be a UK release of it, but for now, I like my German media book. Then we had the Fright Night 2, which was this followed on from the Colin Farrell one, but it's actually a remake of the same original Fright Night again. Bizarre. It's very much like what they've done with the recent Deep Blue Sea movie, where they simply remade the original film. I don't know why, because with this instance, the Colin Farrell one had only come out 2 years before, so I just don't know why they decided to remake it, but with a lot cheaper budget. Crazy. Afflicted, probably the one that not many people have heard about. This is a really good found footage movie, but it's really, you see quite a lot, unlike a lot of found footage films, you will actually see quite a lot on camera in this one, because the guy was GoPro the whole time and he's turned into a vampire. And what is fun about this one, he doesn't know what's going on first of all, and he actually thinks he's turning into a superhero, which I thought was really good, because he gets all these powers and becomes like super strong and stuff, and thinks, wow, I'm becoming a superhero, but he's actually becoming a vampire. It's really fun. The Vampire Journals, this is actually an American release, I believe, and this is actually a spin-off of the Subspecies movies. Now, I love the Vampire Journals. Not a lot actually happens, but this movie is pure atmosphere. And if you are a fan of the gothic Lestat and all that kind of like, you know, Interview with the Vampire style things, but you've not seen this film, then this is a one to hunt down, because it really does have that kind of that decadent sort of gothic feel to it. It is lower budget, obviously, compared to those movies, but it's so, I don't know, I really like it. I really like the characters, and you have this kind of like vampire who doesn't want to be a vampire, so he kind of decides to hunt other vampires. And then we have this Midnight Sun, which was a more recent movie, within the last 10 years, I'd say. And it's about a kind of a realistic tale, like, if that makes sense, of kind of like what would happen if someone had sort of contracted some kind of vampiric disease and how people would react to it. But it is a supernatural thing. I mean, it's not like it is a real vampire, basically. It's not your vampires, kids. Prowl, which was a blind buy when I bought it, and these are kind of like feral, bloodthirsty vampires who are more like monsters. They kind of remind me a little bit of the ones from 30 Days of Night, also the recent movie The Redwood. These are kind of your savage, monstrous vampires. Dracula 3000, I actually bought this years ago on a blind buy on DVD from America, because this was never released in the UK at that point. And yeah, it's kind of a fun, cheesy science fiction take on Dracula, but yeah, I bought it. And then we have the Steelbook for Lost Boys. Now, this was a Best Buy exclusive, so this was the American version. And it's actually now released in the UK, but it's exactly the same cover, so I probably won't bother buying that. But for many years, this was the only steelbook you could get for it, so I was, yeah, I was quite happy with that. Okay, so shark horror films now. Yes, it gets its own subgenre, because I do love a shark movie. So the first one we'll talk about is The Reef. This is an Australian release, and yeah, it's a pretty decent, probably one of the better shark movies. And yeah, it's kind of very similar to Open Water in a way, but if you've not seen it, definitely check it out. I think it's an Australian film, and this is an Australian release. Sharknado. I'm not a huge fan of this series, if I'm honest, but I did like the fact that it's got a steelbook, and I like the art on it, and it wasn't kind of very expensive, so I picked it up. "47 Meters Down." Now, this movie and I have an interesting history. This movie was originally released over a year before under the title In the Deep, but it was only available for a few days, and then the film company pulled it because they wanted to repackage it and put it as a cinema release because of the success of The Shallows. So a few copies got out on DVD, and it was available for streaming for just like 2 or 3 days. And I actually had seen it within that period of time, because I knew the film was coming out and was waiting for it. So I reviewed it, and then the film, I loved it so much, the film company actually contacted me and asked if they could use my quotes in the marketing. And if you look at the US trailers, you'll actually see me quoted in the trailers, in the actual TV spots and stuff, for, you know, this movie was really good, or whatever it is I said. open water cage dive, and it's actually a fairly similar story with this one as well. This is the German release on Blu Ray, but on the UK DVD, I actually am quoted again. So we have a quote on the UK DVD, but it's not. They didn't release it on Blu Ray in the UK, so I wanted to get the German Blu Ray because I wanted it on Blu Ray. Shark Week, which is an asylum movie that basically is obviously a play on the documentary series, but the fun things here is we have a group of survivors that are having to face different sharks and obviously ending up with the great white at the end. Ghost Shark, one of the kind of cheesy mini kind of like shark mix. The interesting with this one is that you have this lenticular sleeve here, but I don't think this was released anywhere outside of the UK on a kind of a format like this. So yeah, you can only get like it on Blu-ray in the UK, but weirdly you can get very few of all of these type of movies. Staying with lenticulars, we have this one, Bait, which is an Australian movie, and it's about this kind of coastal town that gets hit with a tsunami, and there's a kind of a coastal supermarket that gets flooded, and within that flood there's a bunch of people trapped in there, along with a couple of great white sharks. It's actually quite a fun movie. Got Gillian McMahon from Nip Tuck and the Fantastic Four films. So there you go, Bait. No shark fan would be complete without Jaws, and I was very lucky to pick up this steelbook for very cheap. So I was really loving this. I managed to get that because I kind of missed it in its initial launch actually. Yeah, but you know, you can't go wrong with Jaws. It's such a classic, perfect film in my opinion. And then we've kind of already mentioned it, The Shallows, starring Blake Lively. Similar in story to 47 Meters Down, actually. This one about a woman trapped on a rock with a great white circling around her. Whew. So let's check out some creature features. Jack Brooks' Monster Slayer. This is a movie that I had watched a while ago and completely forgotten about, and then I was just kind of like looking through Amazon Germany until they had it on Blu-ray and picked it up again, but I haven't watched it since, so I can't actually remember it. The Thing, this is the Arrow Steelbook. I mean, it's a great film. One of the, still holds up today if you ask me, and I think it's one of the only films in existence that has a completely male cast. There's not one female in the cast of that. A little bit of trivia for you there. Rogue, this is a metal pack from Germany, I want to say, and it's a great crocodile creature feature. I really enjoy crocodile flicks. I'm not, as you know, sharks are still probably my favourite out of the creature features, but I do enjoy a good croc or alligator movie as well. Tremors, this is the Italian steelbook, although the UK steelbook is exactly the same. Great creature feature. I'm not a fan of the sequels or the TV series, to be honest. But the original film is such a classic. Don't mind Tremors 2 actually, but that's about it. The Witch, also an Italian steelbook. Haven't actually seen this film yet. I understand it's you know, it's very slow moving psychological horror, but yeah, I still haven't watched it. We have the Monster Squad. This is a Spanish Blu-ray. It's the only way I could kind of get it. Well, you can get the American version, but again, if I can get a European version, despite the fact that I don't like the fact that it's got obviously a foreign spelling, you know, I don't want to risk it not working, so I'll pick that one up. The Void, sorry. And I had got sent a screener for this movie and enjoyed it, so I wanted to pick up the Blu-ray when it came out. Dagon, this is an H.P. Lovecraft inspired film, and it reminds me of, if you've ever played the game Resident Evil 4, it kind of reminds me of that. And in actual fact, I would say it's the most film that is kind of reminds me of those video games. If you play the video games, but you're not a fan of the films, watch this one, because it really does remind you, especially of Resident Evil 4. Yeah, Dagon. Creature. This was a blind buy. I have actually recently watched this one and reviewed it, actually. Yeah, it was kind of cheesy. Killer Beach, also known as The Sands. It's actually a very similar movie to the film Blood Beach, about some type of creature underneath the sand. Now, Blood Beach was actually banned in the UK for a long time. I did actually have a pre-cert video, VHS of that, but I got rid of all of my VHS, and this is a kind of a more modern story. Although there's some ropey CGI, I actually think this is a really fun film, and I actually enjoyed this quite a lot. The Hallow. I'm not a huge fan of the sleeve of this one, but there you go. It is actually a quite interesting kind of like modern fairy tale about this couple who moved to this kind of remote Irish town, kind of on the edge of this forest, and they're warned not to go into the forest because all these kind of like creatures in there, and of course there are, and they besiege the house, and yeah, it's quite a fun kind of creepy creature feature. Then we have Jerusalem, which is a really great found footage movie that I really enjoy, and it's actually filmed in Jerusalem and stuff, and it's about this kind of like these demons that happen to be awakening at this kind of particular time, and they're all kind of coming out, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought this was a really good movie. Here's one I think people will disagree with me about. The Curse of Sleeping Beauty. Now, when you see that, you're thinking, oh, I don't know what's that. Sleeping Beauty. It's not really anything to do with Sleeping Beauty. It's, well, tangentially maybe, but it's kind of a haunting demon movie. And if you are familiar with the director James Wan, the director here, Perry Reginald Teo, definitely influenced by him, and actually has some really great scenes. The scenes where all these mannequins come to life, and I thought it was good. I mean, a lot of people don't like this film; they just write it off. But I actually think it's a really enjoyable film. Jack Frost. This is by Vinegar Syndrome. This release, and has this lenticular sleeve. Like I've said, I don't really care about who releases it, if I'm honest. So I just wanted this particular film because I had this on VHS. And yeah, I do like a cheesy creature feature. So this is the one and only Vinegar Syndrome release that I have. Wings of Darkness. This was a creature feature that I had actually seen many years ago, but I don't really remember. But it was quite cheap on Amazon Germany, so I picked it up, but have yet to watch it. Jurassic Predator, also known as Predator X. Now, this one is a really cheap, crappy sci-fi movie, as in the channel Sci-Fi. But the reason why I bought it on Blu Ray is because it actually has my favourite dinosaur in it. So my favourite dinosaur is a Liopleurodon, which is the biggest ever carnivorous dinosaur. So it was an aquatic seafaring dinosaur, a plesiosaur. And, you know, you don't hear much about it. It was the one, if you've seen Jurassic World, it was the one that sort of came up, or it's kind of a species similar to that sort of came up out of the water. This is a film all about that, although this basically, the creature in this looks like it should have come out of Roger Rabbit. It just looks like a cartoon. The Mist, a classic Stephen King movie that stars Thomas Jane. And yeah, a really great movie about the monsters outside and the monsters inside. It has one of the most dour endings you've ever seen. Then we have Feast, which was the other one in the horror pack that I got, and is a gooey monster movie that actually has a couple of sequels. Has a kind of a weird Robert Rodriguez kind of feel to it. Lots of gooey, gory effects. And then we have the Piranha steelbook. This is the UK steelbook. And again, this was kind of on the back of Jaws, really, the success of Jaws, and we all got all sorts of kind of creature features. So we'll have a look at some kind of ghost movies now. First one is Grave Encounters, which is a really great found footage film. And I wasn't a big fan of found footage, to be quite honest with you, and kind of avoided them like the plague. But then I watched Grave Encounters, and it changed my mind, and it showed me that that genre really could work. And it's about this kind of group of ghost hunter TV types that actually do find some quite nasty paranormal activity. It was followed up by Grave Encounters 2, which is the not quite as good sequel, but does actually follow up. Is actually a continuation of the movie, not just kind of just a namesake type thing. It's kind of meta to some degree, and it does have some. It has a similar feel, but it's a little bit more cheesy. Carrying on with my haunted asylum or hospital situation, I got this paranormal investigation sanatorium, and this is a German release, and I actually bought this thinking it was something else, and it isn't, so I haven't actually watched this one yet. There you go. But very similar movies to Grave Encounters. Episode 50, again, a kind of a found footage movie. You'll be able to find this review on the channel. As I remember it wasn't fantastic, but I just love this kind of subgenre because I mean, who wouldn't think an abandoned asylum is not scary? And then we have Greystone, which again is a haunted asylum sort of movie. This one's actually produced by Oliver Stone and directed by Sean Stone, Oliver Stone's son, but don't be expecting any cinematic works of art. The Crying Dead, which is a very similar movie to Grave Encounters, and although it's not quite as good, it's actually not too bad and does have a couple of decent scares. This one is a burn-on-demand disc. So I was a bit like, oh, God, I don't really want to get them, but it was the only Blu Ray that I could get. Next one is Sex Tape. This is a French release, and again it is about a haunted hospital, and this couple decide they want to make a sex tape in this thing, and then go in there, and obviously weird shit starts to happen. If you're a fan of my channel, you would have heard me talk about this movie many, many times. Borderlands. This is the German release. It comes with a nice slipcase there, and this is a really fantastic found footage movie. Genuinely unsettling, genuinely scary, with a real sense of growing dread, and I love the ending of this movie. But it is I think this is a really scary film. It's genuinely gave me the creeps. Dead Awake, which was one of the movies that seems to have this rash of sleep paralysis movies recently, but I actually really enjoyed this one. It's kind of about this old hag spirit that kind of like manifests, where these kind of like it holds people down when they're asleep. I enjoyed this one a lot. Pay the Ghost. A lot of people give Nicolas Cage crap in recent years for his kind of very kind of straight-to-video fare that comes out on a fairly regular basis, but I actually enjoyed this film. Insidious 3, this is actually a steelbook, a German steelbook. I enjoy this series not as much as like The Conjuring. I actually recently saw The Last Key, which I didn't really like, if I'm honest, but the other ones were okay. Speaking of The Conjuring, here we have the UK steelbook, which I'm so glad that I got because I was toing and froing about it, because this is really before I started collecting steelbooks properly. And this one is kind of really sought after now. So yeah, I was happy to get this. And we also have The Conjuring 2. Not as good as the first movie, but the Valak demon nun, who was actually added in reshoots, if you're unawares. The original demon would just look like a kind of like a demon with horns, but they changed it. But the scene where she comes out the painting, oh, brilliant stuff. Mama. This one has got a lenticular slipcase, and this one stars Jessica Chastain. It also has the guy who plays Jaime Lannister in Game of Thrones, whose name I'm not going to attempt to say. Nicholas Costas-Waldau or something. Anyway, yeah, it's about it's a modern ghost story about a ghost that actually looks after these two kids and is a little bit possessive over them. The Ward. I actually got this because I was chatting to the directors of this movie about another film, and they kind of said, "Oh, we've done this film," and so I thought I bought it, but I've got to say, I wasn't a big fan. Ghost Hunters. So here's a movie that's actually The Asylum, and you know they put out a lot of crap. Let's be honest, but every so often they'll put out a decent movie. This one's directed by Perry Reginald Teo, who, if you remember, was the guy who I said directed the Curse of Sleeping Beauty, and is a pretty good ghost story actually. And it's kind of the best way to describe it is if Ghostbusters was taken seriously. There you go. The Dead Room. This is actually a New Zealand ghost story that stars Jed Brophy, who you may know from Brain Dead, aka Dead Alive, and again is a pretty scary movie. And this one I had trouble getting hold of, to be honest with you. I didn't really want to get an American version. I took the chance and got it in the end, and I wasn't sure if it was going to work, but there you go. Fear of Ghosts, which is actually called something else outside of Germany, which is what this is, a German release. I forget what the actual name of it is outside of that, but it is not very good. I bought this as a blind buy. I did have reviewed it on the channel, but it's not fantastic. Moving on to some zombie films. Not quite a zombie, but we're talking about Frankenstein's Army. It kind of is. And it's a fun movie. This is actually obviously a box set that has it's called the fan edition, that has this little figurine here. And there's a kind of World War II era about these Nazis that are creating basically zombies, but with kind of like mechanical parts. So it's kind of like a steampunk horror movie. You can get a steelbook of this as well. But it's called Frankenstein's Army, but they're more or less zombies, but with mechanical bits in. FPS. Here's a film I knew nothing about, and I couldn't find barely any information on, but so I bought it as a blind buy. And it's obviously, as you can probably guess, it's a first person, very much in the style of kind of like Doom, Quake, you know, that sort of thing, Call of Duty. It's a German film, but there's very little dialogue in it, so you can kind of not worry too much about it. And it's basically very much like a video game. This guy just kind of going around blowing stuff up in the first person. Zombievers. This is an Italian release with this kind of this slipcase here. Obviously a kind of a B movie about B movies about beavers who become infected with the zombie virus, hence Zombievers. You've got the Dead Snow sequel, Red vs. Dead. It's a fun film. Probably not as good as the original, if I'm completely honest, but I enjoyed this while I watched it, and I just like the steelbook. This kind of red finish to it, which you understand why that is if you've watched the film. A recent zombie film that I really enjoyed is this one. It's Stained to Sound Red, about a woman who is kind of like gets stranded in the desert and is pursued by a singular zombie. And you might think one zombie is not too bad, but if you're running away from it, you're unarmed, you don't have any food and water, and you're in the desert, it becomes a bit of a pain. And it's an interesting character study, really, more than anything else, and how her kind of relationship with this zombie, who she almost grows attaches to a certain degree. One of the most classic zombies, zombie movies you can get, Zombie Flesh Eaters, which is known as a whole bunch of other kind of titles, Zombie 2, etc. Yeah, this is the Arrow Steelbook. They actually got pre-owned from CEX. And probably my overall favourite zombie film is The Return of the Living Dead, which is kind of a punk rock, funky zombie film with some wildly inventive special effects, and was the film that popularised the zombies wanting to eat brains thing that some other films have kind of picked up on as well. But these zombies are a little different from a lot of them. They're more intelligent, they can speak, etc., and interact with you. It spawned a number of sequels, my favourite of which is Return of the Living Dead Part 3. This one actually is told from kind of the perspective of a zombie. This one played by Mindy Clark, who I had a massive crush on when this came out. This is one of the Vestron series with this sort of slipcase. Wormwood, which is a Australian movie which combines kind of Mad Max with a kind of a zombie movie aesthetic, so it's a really fun movie, and again very kind of inventive. Dead Heat, which is a kind of Lethal Weapon meets zombies. This is an 88 films release, but has the slipcase. I enjoyed this movie when it came out, had this on VHS, and it's kind of cheesy, and it's basically got a zombie making machine, but there's a very, very famous scene in it where all this kind of, the contents of a butcher shop all come alive. A film I actually reviewed quite recently on the channel that was a real blind buy was 13 Eerie, and is a zombie film that stars Catherine Isabelle, probably known for Ginger Snaps, and yeah, it's actually a pretty decent zombie movie with some reasonable effects in it. Also, another review you can find on the channel is Dead Mine, about these kind of group of explorers that go into this mine, and they find all these kind of like terracotta army type zombies down there. Yeah, it's a pretty well made film actually, with good production values. The final genre we'll be talking about is superhero films, but this is going to be anything which is other than Marvel, because the Marvel movies I'm doing in separate videos, which you can see on the channel. First thing we'll talk about is the Green Lantern. This is the Steelbook. Actually, don't remember which country I got this from, but there you go, Green Lantern Steelbook. We have the Dark Knight. This is actually a French Steelbook. Obviously, a lot of people's favourite ever superhero film. And The Dark Knight Rises. Even though I am primarily a Marvel fan, I still do enjoy a lot of the DC stuff. Man of Steel. Even though I had all my problems with this film movie, I still actually quite enjoyed it. This is actually the Italian version of Batman vs Superman. That's the Steelbook. That's a Steelbook as well. And then we have the UK Steelbook, which was from HMV. Suicide Squad. We have the UK Steelbook, which was again from HMV. I actually got the premium Steelbook of this one as well. This one's from Nova Media and is a got the lenticular slipcase and is limited to 700 pieces. We got the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is the original movie. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, of course, was basically a kind of a parody of Daredevil. We have the Spawn movie, obviously one that's probably forgotten by most people because of the terrible CGI effects. Kick-Ass, Mark Millar's, probably one of his most famous comics, obviously adapted there into a pretty decent movie, I've got to say, I enjoyed. And then we have the Steelbook again for the second one. Again, I mean, I enjoyed this one nearly as much as the first, I think. Toxic Avenger, actually one of the earliest sort of superhero parody type movies, obviously from Troma, this one, and probably their most famous export, I would say. Before James Gunn directed Guardians of the Galaxy, he directed a number of small films, and this is one of them, Super, which is a kind of a, I guess a similar, in a way, to Kick-Ass, about a guy who just goes out and dresses up as a superhero. But this one's probably a little darker than Kick-Ass, and actually is kind of quite tragic in a lot of ways. Chronicle, a found footage movie. This is, I think, a French steelbook that is actually quite good, that introduces to a number of people, including Michael B. Jordan, Dale DeHaan, Max Landis, who wrote this, and then Josh Trank, who directed it. The Crow, I saw this at the cinema when it came out with my girlfriend at the time, and she was, you know, she was obsessed with it, and was gutted when obviously she found out that Brandon Lee had died. Anyway, and this is a really good film that I think it still holds up today, really, and doesn't need to be remade. This is just the regular Amory. I also have German steelbook, which is kind of nice. And then a little later, we had the UK steelbook, which I still liked as well, so I bought it again, because I like the artwork. And we have Defendor, which is a very underrated kind of sort of superhero film. Again, it's like that kind of like that Kick-Ass thing about a guy who kind of dresses up as a superhero and tries to fight crime in real life. This time he's like a mentally handicapped guy. Who is kind of, you know, sees himself as a sort of a defender of the innocent and stuff. But it's a fun movie with some great reactions and kind of character play, and again, it's quite tragic. Green Hornet, you know, I was never that precious about Green Hornet, so I didn't really care about the kind of the modern remake, but I found it quite fun in places. And I do have a few Marvel animation ones, which I don't really class and Marvel proper, to be honest, so I'll just chuck them in here. That is the Planet Hulk, which was, of course, somewhat adapted for the Thor Ragnarok movie. We have the Ultimate Avengers, which is a steelbook. We have Hulk Versus, which is actually two shorter films, Hulk vs. Thor and Hulk vs. Wolverine. And the Hulk vs. Wolverine actually has Deadpool in it as well. And then finally, Big Hero 6, which is actually based on a Japanese kind of superhero group by Marvel, who are very, very minor characters. This is obviously, it's been changed quite a lot for this, but anyway, that's the steelbook, that's the UK steelbook. Anyway, please let me know what you thought of my Blu Ray collection. Like I said, if you want to see any of the Marvel stuff, please do check out my Marvel videos, and yeah, let me know what you thought, any particular favourites that you saw. Leave me a comment, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.